Part 4. Immanent Spirit. In this instruction we seek to convince you that the actuating energy of the cosmos, the source and fount, the cause and reason, of universal movement, motion, action, change, becoming, events, happenings is spiritual power, the power of spirit. Spirit, as you shall see, is not only the something or somewhat that manifests life and livingness that senses, perceives, knows, that feels, craves, desires, but is also the something or somewhat that acts, performs, creates. The cosmos, i.e., the world proceeding according to law and order, by change and becoming, the cosmic process, in short, is explainable and understandable only under the hypothesis of spirit playing upon material substance, of spirit working upon and working up matter by the power of its will, directed by the power of its mentality, and animating the world with its breath of life. The world is material substance animated, informed, instilled by immanent spirit. The term immanent means indwelling, abiding within, remaining within, inherent, intrinsic, innate, inward, internal. The term spirit, however, is frequently not understood, still oftener, misunderstood. Most persons have but a vague and hazy concept of spirit, and in many instances are found to have failed to perceive and apprehend the most essential elements of the meaning of the term, and of the spirit of its concept. Let us, then, first arrive at a clear understanding and comprehension of the true meaning of the term and concept of spirit. We must do this, if we are to proceed intelligently with this instruction. The definitions of the term, spirit. Very widely the term is employed with several shades of meaning apparently having no relation to each other, but which, when carefully analyzed and compared, are found to have a common basis of agreement and essential nature. We shall ask you to follow us in our brief examination of the root and meaning of the term, and its several shades of acquired meaning, so that you may be able to share with us the understanding of the full, essential meaning of the concept and term which has been squeezed out and extracted by concentrated attention and exhaustive examination. The English term, spirit, is derived from the Latin term, spiritus, which in turn was derived from the older Latin term, spirare, meaning, to breathe, to blow, as the wind or breath. Examination of the usage of the word spiritus, in the place and at the time of its origin, shows that it employed the idea of breath or blowing wind figuratively and symbolically to indicate essential existence, i.e., existence of such an ethereal character that the term matter failed to convey an idea of its nature. The term, essenta, from which our English word essence was derived, came nearer to illustrating the spirit and essence of meaning of the term spirit than did any other Latin term. Here it should be noted that the term essenta was derived from the Latin term esse, meaning to be, and indicates being reduced to its ultimate and final state of refinement. We call your attention to these facts, that you may grasp the idea originally sought to be conveyed by the root term of spirit, the idea of essential existence, i.e., existence reduced and refined to its ultimate state. It should be noted here that one of the several modern uses of the English term, spirit, is that of tenuous or vaporous essence, possessed of active qualities. Hence, any liquid produced by distillation, refinement, concentration, etc., in which it is reduced to its ultimate, essential, elemental, and pure state. You should also note that the term is frequently employed to indicate the real meaning or essential character of anything, as, for instance, the spirit of the address, the spirit of the play, the spirit of the term, etc. This last meaning is stated in the dictionaries as the intent, or real meaning, as opposed to the letter or form of a word, statement, expression, or discourse of any kind. Here then, we have the identification of the term, spirit, with the term, essence, the latter being defined as the finale, ultimate, fundamental state, mode, form, condition, character or nature of anything, the basic and elemental nature of anything after its grosser aspects and its temporary forms have been abstracted from it, the athena itself of anything which is left after it has ceased to manifest phenomenal forms and appearances, that which is present when a thing has been reduced to its purest possible state of existence. Following close upon this essential meaning, we find that the term, as originally employed, also indicated actuating principle, i.e., the inherent, inner principle moving and inciting the thing to action or motion. To grasp more fully this fact, compare the following definitions of the term, activity, and the term spirited activity means state or quality of being active, vigorous, agile, brisk, energetic. Spirited means energetic, full of vigor and energy, lively, quick, active, brisk. In the dictionaries, one of the meanings of the term spirit is that of energy, vivacity, activity, ardor, enthusiasm, courage, etc. Here then, we have the idea of spirit as being active, energetic, lively, vigorous of being, in short, the actuating energy. But there is a third, and a very important meaning involved in both the Old Latin term, spiritus, and its English descendant, spirit, the meaning of life, livingness, vitality, liveliness, vital energy, the essence of life. The dictionaries give as one of the meanings of spirit that of life, or living substance, considered independently of corporeal existence, or that which gives life and vigor to the human body and the bodies of plant and animals, the vital principle or life via force. This meaning of spirit may be stated as life, in its original, elemental, pure, and essential ultimate state, mode or condition. In that meaning of the term spirit, which is given in the dictionaries as the soul or essential entity of a living thing, conceived as either embodied or disembodied, there is combined the idea of ethereal existence and that of essential life or livingness. The term spirit, frequently used as synonymous with ghost, is simply one form of this particular meaning. It is interesting to note that the equivalents of the term spirit employed in other languages carry with them the same fundamental and essential meaning as that found in the Latin term, spiritus, and its English derivative, spirit. Such terms have as their root some term meaning breath or moving wind. They also express the respective meanings of a. Ethereal existence, or quintessence of existence, b. Actuating principle or active energy, c. Life, livingness, vitality, and lively actions expressing abundant life and vitality, and d. Embodied or disembodied souls or entities. This correspondence is significant, particularly when it is noted that it is found in tongues not originally derived from Latin sources. The early people of these several races all seem to have found in the symbol of breath or moving wind the best figurative illustration of a tenuous, ethereal something possessing activity and life. It represented something present and felt, but not seen, manifesting its presence by its motion and not by its form. Breath and wind were the two most ethereal and tenuous things known to the early man, and he naturally employed them as symbols for that something or somewhat which he intuitively felt to be present and active in the universe of things, forces, and events. It represented to him existence, energy, and life reduced to their ultimate form of refinement and purity. Illustrating the above significant fact, we give the following examples. In the Hebrew Scriptures, in Genesis 2:7, it is stated that, "The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." In the original Hebrew, the phrase, "the breath of life," is stated as neshamat ratsham. The term, neshamat, meaning the physical breath, or act of breathing. The term, rach, meaning the spirit or essence of life, and the term, shayam, meaning life, lives, or livingness. Thus, the literal meaning of the passage of the Scriptures in question is, as follows: "The Lord God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of the spirit or essence of life or livingness," or that the Supreme Being so transmitted life to his creation or creature, and made him a living soul. Likewise, in the ancient Greek tongue, the term pneuma, meaning wind, breath, to blow as the wind, was also employed in the sense of the spirit or essence of life, or the life principle, or spirit. Even to this day, in English, we find theology and philosophy employing the term pneumatology to indicate the science of spiritual being, or spiritual phenomena of any description, while physics employs the term pneumatics to indicate the science treating of the power and properties of air, the double meaning thus being clearly illustrated. Again, the Greek term psyche, meaning soul, mind, spirit, and from which the term psychology is derived, originally meant moving wind, or the breath. The English word, ghost, is derived from the Anglo-Saxon term, just, the German term, Geist, and the Old English term, Geist, each and all of which terms originally meant breath or wind and afterward became employed to express the idea of soul, spirit, or living entities embodied or disembodied. In this connection, it should be noted that the English word ghost, and the German word Geist, Both are employed to indicate a phase or aspect of deity, i.e., the Holy Ghost. In the English theology, it is held as axiomatic that God is spirit, this following upon the original statement of this doctrine in the original Greek, in which the term pneuma is employed in the sense of spirit. A similar double meaning of breath or wind, and essential living, active, ethereal existence, soul or spirit, is also found in the Sanskrit and in other ancient Oriental languages. This is believed to be more than a mere coincidence. The same necessities of thought sought the same forms of illustration, the same causes brought the same results. When you stop to consider this necessity of human thought, and the difficulty of expressing it in the terms of materiality, you will appreciate the almost intuitive employment of terms like spirit, pneuma, Geist, etc., to represent pure essence, energy and life. Even today, the term spirit serves but imperfectly to express a concept almost inexpressible in material terms. Edgar Allan Poe pointed out this difficulty in the following significant passage: "This merest of words, and some other expressions of which the equivalent exists in nearly every language, is by no means the expression of an idea, but of an effort at one. It stands for the possible attempt at an impossible conception." Man needed a term by which to point out the direction of this effort, the cloud behind which lay, forever invisible, the object of the attempt. A word, in fine, was demanded by means of which one human being might put himself in relation at once with another human being with a certain tendency of the human intellect. Out of this arose a term, which is thus the representative but of a thought. While man knows certainly, more certainly than he can know anything else, that spirit exists and is present and active within him, yet he finds it almost impossible to define that reality in ordinary terms denoting material qualities, properties and attributes. So many opposing qualities are found in its manifestations, properties which mutually cancel each other and thus cannot be regarded as essential attributes of the manifesting reality, that very little is left upon which the mind may seize, and which will serve as the substance of mental mastication in the processes of reasoning. Indeed, a writer has expressed the thought that spirit must be regarded as an infinite possibility, or the possibility of an infinity of manifestation and expression, rather than as entity. But he is only stating a half a truth. Spirit is true entity, i.e., real being, real essence, real existence, although it may be known only through its manifestations, except in one instance, the experience of self-consciousness. The difficulty of apprehension and comprehension of it as entity arises from the fact that, being infinite, and being pure essence, therefore, being devoid of finite qualities and characteristics, and being free from the appearances of its forms of expression, it cannot be taken hold of by the intellect, or imagination, because these are designed and fitted merely to cognize and to represent the forms and images of material things, and the qualities and characteristics of these. But, notwithstanding this difficulty, intellect, when properly applied and directed by intuition, is able to perceive the presence of several aspects or modes of the essential reality of spirit. Whatever else spirit may be, or may not be, it must possess these several aspects or modes of itself in order to be spirit. Without intending to limit or restrict the essential reality of spirit to the following aspects or modes of itself, we must insist that these are always perceived to be present in all of the manifestations and expressions of the presentia power of spirit of which the human intellect or intuition has any knowledge or experience. These knowable and perceptible aspects or modes of spirit, to which we have just referred, are as follows: presence, manifesting essence, reality, actuality, life, manifesting sentience, conation, volition, power, manifesting strength, energy, force. You are now invited to consider in further detail the above stated several aspects or modes of spirit, and their several manifestations. The presence of spirit. Spirit is perceived in self-consciousness to be entity actually present and in being, and not the mere idea or thought of mind, nor a mere verbal symbol or a word expressing something lacking real existence and presence. By presence is meant state of being present, i.e., existing in reality at a certain time and in a certain place. That spirit is present is evidenced by the report of self-consciousness, the inevitable, invariable and infallible report that I am present, which is implicit in every conscious thought, and which is intensely impressed upon consciousness when it is directed inward. This accompanied by the invariable, and infallible report of intuition that I am spirit. Moreover, as spiritual activity is apparent, even when manifested by others in acts of the living will, and as it is axiomatic that whenever and wherever a thing acts, then and there must it be present, it follows that the actual presence of spirit must be conceded. The aspect or mode of spirit known as presence manifests in essence, reality, actuality. Let us briefly examine each of these in the above order. Essence has been defined in the course of this instruction. You are familiar with the meaning of the term and concept. You understand that it indicates the ultimate nature and pure being of the existence to which the term is applied and which the concept covers. You are now asked to realize that spirit is pure spiritual essence, the pure essence of life, mind, consciousness, will, the pure essence of everything that is not material substance or the manifestations of the latter. Spirit is the ultimate essence of spirituality and spiritual things. Spirit is spiritual essence, just as ethereal material is material substance. Each represents the thing in itself of its class or category. Just as material substance fills all space, so does spiritual essence fill all time. Bergson and Einstein will tell you more about this wonderful fact. If you wish to acquire that knowledge, it is too deep for the present consideration, and you must learn to swim before you venture to explore its waters. The much talked of, and long sought after, fourth dimension belongs to time and spirit, not to space and matter in whose realm it has been sought. This, also, is another deep subject which we shall not undertake to explain fully here. We have indicated the direction in which the explanation lies. You must seek it for yourself if you are so minded. Reality means the state of being real, actual, truly existent, and in being not imaginary, fictitious, vague, or lacking in substantiality. Spirit is real, and not imaginary or fictitious. It is a fact, not a dream. You can doubt your senses, but you can never doubt the fact that you are alive, and life is an aspect or mode of spirit. You may dream of matter, without that matter being present, but you can never dream of life or mind, without life and mind being present and active in you, and these are aspects or modes of spirit. You can know matter only through living mind, but you cannot know either matter or mind through matter lacking the immanent presence of life and mind. Your consciousness that I am is the most certain, most real thing that you can know. All the rest may be a dream, for that matter, but that cannot be a dream, unless there be a dreamer, and if there is a dreamer, that dreamer is you, a focal point or center of living spirit. You may find it difficult to discover just what the spirit that is you really is, but you can never doubt that it is and that it is real. The fundamental difficulty attached to human thought on the subject of spirit is this, that it is spirit trying to contemplate itself, an attempt justly likened to the effort to turn oneself inside out, just as the eye, while seeing everything else, is unable to see itself. So is spirit hampered in its efforts to see itself in thought. Just as the stomach digests all living substance placed in it but never digests itself, so is spirit able to experience through the senses everything else except itself. But it may know itself, feel itself, in the experience of self-consciousness, and it may intuit itself in the processes of intuition. Such knowing, and feeling, and intuiting, moreover, always bring the report, I am and I am real. Through intuition, spirit reports inevitably, invariably, infallibly, I am I, or, when pressed closer by intellect for a more definite report, even, I am that I am. The I am I, that focal point of conscious immanent spirit which is you, reports through intellect and through intuition, I think, I feet, I act, I move of my own will and by my own power. Therefore, I am, and I am real, and not fictitious, a reality and not the figment of a dream. Even if I were a dream, there would needs be a dreamer, and that dreamer would be involved in his dream idea, and this I would then be the I am of the dreamer as well as of the dream person. You can never truthfully say, I am not real, for in your very denial would be implied the fact that the I that is denying must be real. No sane man can ever deny his own reality, and feel convinced that he is stating the truth. His troubles begin only when he stops to consider whether the things external to him, the material universe, is also real. If the reality of spirit be doubted or denied, then the reality of everything must be doubted or denied, for that everything is known only to spirit, and by reason of the reality of spirit deny the reality of the knower, and the reality of the known is also denied, and in that case there is nothing left to know or to be known. Actuality means the state of being actual, i.e., really and truly acting or active, existing in real act. The actuality of spirit can no more be doubted than can be its reality. Any individual who has ever performed an act of volition or will has experienced an inevitable, invariable and infallible proof of the actuality of spirit. He need not fall back upon the final report of philosophy, and of advanced science as well, that all power is will power, all action is will action. He need refer only to his own experience and willing. In another part of this book we relate the story of Edison wagging his finger at Boise Raymond, and demanding the answer to his question, "What is this?" Edison knew the actuality of his immanent spirit, and his simple question overwhelmed the other great scientist. The simplest voluntary act of the living creature proves the actuality of spirit. In every movement, in every motion, in every action, in every change of position, even in every thought, the living creature gives undoubted evidence of the fact that spirit is active, actual. Actuality, it possesses the power to act, and it acts. And so, you see that we are warranted in positing in spirit the aspects and modes, the attributes and properties, if you will, of presence and its manifestations known as essence, reality, actuality. We ask you to fix these in your mind, so that when you think of spirit you will think of it, first of all, in the terms and ideas of presence, i.e., essence, reality, actuality. In the next two following sections of this book we shall ask you to consider the other two great aspects or modes of spirit, viz., life, manifesting sentience, conation, volition and power, manifesting strength, energy, force,